Happy Thanksgiving! Today, we have a special episode to help you stay safe during this holiday season. Consider the fact that in 2020, online sales of counterfeit merchandise increased by 40%. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce just released its 2022 numbers that counterfeit products cost the global economy $500 billion a year. Today on The Balanced Voice, we welcome Alysa Erichs and Jeni Zuercher to discuss holiday scams to look out for and counterfeit goods threatening our community.
The thing with counterfeiting is you're talking about low risk and high reward for them, right? The penalties that are associated with this versus narcotics, et cetera, and the money that can be made, and the consumer, and sometimes the uneducated consumer that's out there not realizing that they're supporting this back-end criminal activity that they don't see. They just see a product online. If somebody just wants to go out, they're pressured for time, they want to buy something cheaper, you also have to think about beyond the safety of the product, which is obviously of primary concern, but you're costing Americans their jobs. It's threatening the U.S. economy. It's related to national security. Our national security is our country's economy. And also, really, what criminal organizations are you funding that are behind this?
Alysa Erichs is currently the spokesperson for United to Safeguard America from Illegal Trade, USAIT. Alysa is also a seasoned investigator who retired as the acting executive associate director for Homeland Security Investigations. Homeland Security Investigations' investigative and enforcement initiatives and operations target cross-border criminal organizations that exploit America's legitimate trade, travel, financial, and immigration systems for their illicit purposes. Jeni Zuercher is the Director of Global Brand Protection and a brand integrity expert for Yeti, where she leads the charge on all aspects of Yeti's anti-counterfeiting, cargo theft, online protection, and map integrity enforcement. Her holistic civil and criminal approach has included International Trade Commission filings, local and federal law enforcement actions, customs and border regulation protections, and persuading platform operators to ensure legitimate-only products offered to their joint consumers. Alysa and Jeni's expertise in the field of scams and counterfeit products makes this episode a must-listen before you begin your holiday shopping this year. Without further ado, here's your host, Rania Mancarios.
Welcome to the Balanced Voice podcast. We're always so excited for these conversations, but this week I'm really, really excited because we're going to be talking about an issue that relates to so many of us, especially women shopping, actually anybody doing holiday shopping. We're going to be talking about staying safe from holiday scams, but also with a particular look at counterfeit products. So we're thrilled to have with us Alysa.
Thank you.
Welcome. And Jeni.
Thank you.
We're so happy. You guys are phenomenal women who have done so much. And so, I pulled some numbers, or our executive producer, Sydney Zeicher, pulled the numbers, but I'm going to read the numbers that were pulled before we start. So, 2021, American consumers spent $8.9 billion online during Black Friday. They spent $10.7 billion on Cyber Monday. 1 in 3 Americans say they'll take more risks when they're doing holiday shopping. And I'll tell you, I relate to that because you're in a crunch. You have a list of stuff you're supposed to get your kids or a friend or whomever, and you just got to get it done. So you're going to places you never thought you'd go. So we want to talk about what holiday scams can look like. We want to talk about counterfeit products and why we should even care. Because Jeni, at the end of the day, is it just a matter of, you represent this fabulous company, Yeti. At the end of the day, is it just the concern that, these wonderful companies won't make the bottom line that they want to make? Because I think it's so much more than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm brand protection, but one of the biggest things for me is consumer protection because I shop a lot online. Yeah. And there's so much out there. It's not like you're going to your local mall. It's not even like you're choosing to go to a flea market. You're going to something where you think you're getting it from that manufacturer. So if you want to buy something that's less expensive, let's say, then you have that opportunity when you go to any other supermarket. But if you want something that is that specific brand, so in this case, it's Yeti, the counterfeit resellers have gotten smart enough to know that the deep discount is not something that the consumer is going to believe. So they'll give them 20 or 30% off, and then they'll just keep their money, or they'll send it to them 3 months later and the bottom falls off, or there's sharp edges and harmful chemicals in it. So you just have to decide on what you want to bring into your house. And I think we should all be much more aware of what we bring into our house.
For sure.
Kind of your podcast in general.
So, but that's so interesting. So you're buying a product that's not going to be up to standards, and that's more than just a disappointment because the product could be dangerous.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things is people think of when they think of counterfeits as maybe purses or
Yes, very true.
even a phone charger. I mean, there was even a story about a woman that it was a fatal accident when she plugged in a counterfeit phone charger for her Apple phone. And then there's lots of studies and research out there about human trafficking in the cargo containers that have those luxury high-end purses. So people think they're getting this deal or it looks just like it. It's not made in the same factories. And then you think about your community too. I mean, Yeti's a Texas company.
Yeah.
I want to support my fellow workers, but also just businesses here that are supporting employees and growing. And that doesn't happen if all of a sudden their brand is obliterated.
Yeah. So, I mean, Alysa, you obviously oversaw under Homeland Security. You saw so much of this. So when she's talking about cargo trucks and human trafficking and almost like this entire, it sounds like a crime network, an organized crime network, what did you guys see?
We saw that it was counterfeiting was absolutely related to transnational organized crime. Obviously, not every single case is, but in terms of like what you had mentioned earlier, if somebody just wants to go out, they're pressured for time, they want to buy something cheaper, you also have to think about beyond the safety of the product, which is obviously of primary concern, but you're costing Americans their jobs. It's threatening the U.S. economy. It's related to national security. Our national security is our country's economy. And also, really, what criminal organizations are you funding that are behind this? Who's behind this?
I mean, that's like mind-blowing to hear you talk about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there are specific cases where we have seen, and it's been testified to in Congress, that it has been related to terrorist financing. It's related to organized crime. And when you think about organized crime, what other types of organized crime are they involved in? As mentioned before, sometimes it's human trafficking, sometimes it's drug smuggling. The thing with counterfeiting is you're talking about low risk and high reward for them, right? The penalties that are associated with this versus narcotics, et cetera, and the money that can be made, and the consumer, and sometimes the uneducated consumer that's out there not realizing that they're supporting this back-end criminal activity that they don't see. They just see a product online that they may, in some cases, if they know they're buying counterfeit and they don't care, versus whether they don't know they're buying counterfeit.
Yeah.
And I would say the online marketplace is the one where it's like they don't know they're buying
That's a big thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know.
You don't know at all. You can make educated decisions when you're buying for sure. And I know tips are always a good thing around this time of year. So buying from the genuine source, I don't think any brand out there needs their consumer to be the authenticator of the product. I think what they need to do is provide them the space and access to find out where is the genuine product sold. And I think most people know where the genuine product is sold until you get into that third-party marketplace.
But Jeni,
world.
that's what I was going to say. You really don't. Like, yes, I know that if I go to, there's a gorgeous new Yeti store right here in Houston on Westheimer. I mean, it's beautiful. So I know I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to get an authentic piece product. But if I'm on Facebook Marketplace, gosh, sometimes if I'm on Amazon, I mean, you recently held this conference, and Jeni, you spoke, and you were an incredible moderator, and you were talking about the Walmart marketplace and all these. So, talk to us about that, because a lot of us go there and don't think twice about it.
My team, Yeti. At Yeti, I was fortunate enough to create the entire program. So I didn't inherit anybody's problems, which is also a really nice way to go into a program. But I was able to do it. Every idea I've come up with, the senior leadership at Yeti is amazing. And so they're just like, yes, let's do it. They really want to protect the brand. They want to protect the consumer. We have extremely loyal following, and we don't take that for granted. So that all said, Amazon was a significant challenge back in 2017 and 2018. They've made a lot of progress. They created a group called a cybercrime unit, who we being Yeti have worked with and partnered with on some civil cases, and then we may or may not have criminal targets that we may or may not work with Homeland Security as well on.
May or may not. Keywords.
But, you know.
For everybody listening, that means yes, it's happening.
But, you know, it's tough because there are so many resellers out there. And then there's resellers of genuine product too.
Right.
So we have one specific seller that's authorized on Amazon where I can tell you always get genuine. Other brands aren't as fortunate with the way they sell their goods. So I don't know about you, when you go on Amazon and you just need something fast.
Right.
Or you need a gift and you just type in like gifts for her or gifts for a 6-year-old.
Right.
And items pop up. You just click on it and you select Prime and then you put it in your cart and you're done. Have you ever looked to see who you're buying it from?
See, I have. I'm sure you.
Yes.
I mean, you must know all about everybody that you could possibly be buying from. But it doesn't mean anything. To me, it doesn't mean anything.
But it should mean something.
Right.
And,
Right.
and you have to retrain the public to look for those facts, if you're looking, buy from a trusted source, buy from a source that's on there that has a brick and mortar store, check out their reviews.
The reviews for sure.
Yes, because hopefully, people will post. And if people have notified the marketplace of counterfeit material, then you want to make sure that's where it has to start also, so that maybe some action will be taken on their part. Like Jenny mentioned earlier, if it's anything more than a 20% discount, it's
too good to be
too good to be true.
Or stolen.
Right. Exactly. You have that problem too. And in terms of, you talk about counterfeit merchandise or merchandise that you're thinking that believed to be true, that you're going on these websites that offer these great deals, whether you get the product and it's substandard or it's a hazard to your health or safety, that's one thing. What happens when you never get it? They've stolen your identity and now they're selling it on the dark web, and you're going to have a case of identity theft later on, and your credit card has been stolen. That's that's rampant right now.
Yeah,
the
is
phishing
rampant.
scam is just
Tell us what that is.
There's scams, right, where buy these 3 things for $99, but the real value of all those things is like $700, right? So we've seen that. I've seen that. I've gone after that. But then there's the phishing, and the phishing is when somebody wants to steal your identity. So it's that clickbait. They just want you to click on something so that they can get your credit card and your personal details. And they're doing it with win a backpack, or what did I see the other day? Something about your Amazon account is locked. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting text messages about that, or Kohl's or Dick's Sporting Goods.
The Walmart gift card.
Yeah, the Walmart gift card.
Yes.
All of those things. You didn't just win something.
Right.
Right.
And, I put that on the free services that allow you to have your email, because they're collecting your data. And then on the back end, there are these bad actors that are circumventing all of the rules, and they don't play by the rules, and they're well funded, and they're going in and knowing how to advertise to that person because they like coolers, or they like phones, or they just did a search on something. So, I'd say it's a do better moment, big time, for a very large company that starts with a G. But but that's just this recent phishing scam. There's a lot more to do, and then there's people's privacies and all that kind of stuff. But with counterfeiters, and phishing schemes, you kind of have to find a way to cut off that stream, and it can't only be on the brands, and it can't only be on third-party marketplaces. Credit card companies could probably do more too.
Like?
They have an interesting ecosystem on the back end. Do we really want to get into this part? But, my dream would be, I've been doing the payment processor enforcement since 2011 when it all first started. And what I thought was fascinating back then, I wasn't at Yeti, and it was NFL jerseys that the people that were selling the counterfeits, and they were selling an item and people were getting it, but it was counterfeit. And to set up a bank account, they said that they were selling wedding dresses because it had the same kind of volume and weight in the shipping box. And that's against their policy. And so they can then fine like the Visas of the world or MasterCard. American Express is insane. So always use your Amex.
We need to see if they'll sponsor this podcast at this point.
Always
Use your Amex.
No, but they really make their service agreements adhered to. And so I'm sure there are patterns. I mean, let's say you love patterns. I love patterns. Like you got to build a case on something. And I feel like all you have to do is lift a rock and you'll just see it nonstop. So, are the bigger companies looking more at the profit, the advertising dollars that they're being paid, or all these international banks all over the place that are setting up these vendors? I don't know.
I mean, it also touches on that there is, a lot of shell corporations that are being formed. Once it becomes apparent that a website is selling counterfeit merchandise or fraudulent merchandise, and they're shut down, they're coming up with a new name, opening a new account, using the peer-to-peer payment system. You hope shoppers are aware that you don't purchase something by paying with a gift card. You don't call up and give them any information regarding that. You need to be able to make sure that if you're paying with something, it's on a secure, the HTTPS, to make sure it's private, secure. But I think that's the problem, is that that the folks aren't seeing this side of it, right? They're not seeing that this is the same company that just ripped off 500 people, and now it's a new name because they got caught, and they're just continuing until law enforcement can catch up with them. But there does have to be that partnership between the private industry and law enforcement. Information has to be passed to law enforcement. That information has to go from the public either to law enforcement or to the retailers or to the websites, the marketplaces, to make sure that there's awareness. But I think we should talk about also just the things that are counterfeit on there, right? I mean, back to school items, right? People want to buy things for their kids, backpacks, sneakers, pencils, things that may have harmful
but
chemicals.
That's what I'm thinking. You're never, as a mom, thinking this is going to hurt. I'm not even thinking this is going to hurt anybody. I'm literally like, I have 10 million things to buy. I'm trying not to spend thousands of dollars. But to hear, to kind of put what you're saying in perspective, and then I want you to keep going through the list. We're talking about not just potentially not getting your item. So you've given your credit card and you're not going to get anything. You're talking about getting a fake item that could be dangerous for your child or the person you're shopping for. Or a stolen item, which of course feeds a criminal enterprise. But what other items? So,
I mean, any and everything is always our answer, right? In terms of what can be counterfeit. Obviously, the luxury goods you see a lot of online. The sports memorabilia you'll see things of even life jackets or things of that. And cell phones, electronics, Christmas lights.
Oh, that's scary because it could burn down your house.
Yes, batteries, automotive parts. There was a time airbags. There was a trend when the counterfeit airbags were coming in. They were blowing up in people's faces without even having a collision.
But it's even interesting because these organized crime rings, you said something earlier, so this can be a national security issue. And I want you to go back to that. But these organized crime, I mean, they're sitting here thinking, let's make fake airbags and
anything to make money.
Yeah, and it just has to be good enough to get the person that's looking for it to purchase it. So it's not like your local car mechanic
or whatever.
Yeah, the mechanic doesn't think they're buying counterfeits. But when you're selling counterfeits and you don't know it, that's still not an excuse. And all of the big companies out there and law enforcement will continue to pursue each of those. They may not get as big of a penalty, but there's jail time, there's finances, there's recalls that you end up having to do, all of those things.
Thank you to our Season 5 sponsor, FlipLock, for making this episode possible. FlipLock was created as a nationwide, straightforward solution to protect your people, whether it be in universities, dorms, daycares, hospitals, or even government buildings. We're proud to have such a strong and like-minded sponsor this season. Check out FlipLock at fliplock.com. That's FLIPLOK.com.
And again, it's not about the bottom line for the company, because when I talk to people, they say, I'm not, it's everybody has these businesses have so much money. I can't worry about that. And it's like, no, but it's not only about that. And you made a good point. Yeti's a Texas company. We want them to thrive. We want our businesses to thrive. We want people to have jobs to go to. So we should care about the bottom line for the companies. But it's more than that. It's consumer protection.
Yeah. And that's really what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, I want to protect people from decisions they don't know they're going to make. And that's why I try to keep it so clean on Amazon for Yeti.
But
it's tough. It's every day.
There was an example of a dog bowl of straws that a kid might drink from a tumbler, and let's talk about some of those.
Yeah, so the dog bowl is interesting. So I don't know if your listeners know that Yeti makes a dog bowl. We have
and we have a beautiful dog in studio with us today.
My dog has a few.
Ranger. And if Ranger won't come up, you'll see him in pictures. Go look at pictures of this podcast.
He'll definitely come up. But we had counterfeit dog bowls, and we have worked with Homeland Security on some really awesome cases, meaning that we curtailed some significant activity. Like, the guy was making over $100,000 a month.
Wow.
At customizing Yeti goods is how he was selling it, but they were counterfeits that he was shipping in from China, and then he was modifying them and putting all sorts of other people's logos on it that weren't his as well.
Wow.
And then he was selling them for 2 times the amount that the retail price was, because they were customized. But I mean, these are organized criminals. Imagine if they used that for something good.
I know.
Yeah, but he in particular had multiple color offerings of the cups, and Homeland Security conducted tests, and like a recall on a kid's toy is 100 parts per million. And these cups had 2,000 parts per million of lead.
Oh my gosh.
And that's not counting all the other things that people don't necessarily think about, like cadmium and all the other chemicals on the list of do not put in your mouth.
Is there a place where consumers can go before they make a purchase to kind of verify?
Yes. And you can always go to the brand, of course.
Yeah.
I have a favorite site that I go to as a consumer, because it talks to you like a consumer and not like, big brand who is details, blah, blah, blah. It's called scamadvisor.com.
Okay.
And it has a dial, and so it'll say kind of like trustworthy or not.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought they were this great big company, and it's like 4 guys just trying to get out there and keep the marketplace safer.
Okay. So that's one everybody should be going to.
I think so. And you can even put in Amazon sellers, I think, on there. But you can absolutely look up websites. I would say anytime I think there are a few companies out there that actually own and run a store with VIP in the name. But that it used to be one of the favorite counterfeit things is to put an S at the end of the brand's name, or put VIP in front of it.
Interesting.
Or custom this or that. But Scam Advisor is great. Definitely if you're doing, it's not an area I work in, but it overlaps because the counterfeiters don't just do one product. They'll do counterfeit drugs and counterfeit prescription drugs. So I know that there's a company called like Legit Script, and you can go on there, and I believe that company, he used to be the drug czar. He does work for other companies besides the big pharma, but you can go on there and vet whether or not it's a real pharmacy or.
So those are 2 very good resources, and I want to go back to what you were saying, national security issue. How? Examples?
Okay, sure. Well, number one, we want to protect our supply chain, right, for our Department of Defense, et cetera. There was one case in particular where there was counterfeit military uniforms that made it into the government supply chain. And these particular uniforms were supposed to hide your heat signature. So if our troops were making entry or traveling at night, and if they tried to use infrared to identify a heat signature, it was supposed to help keep the body temperature from being displayed so that they can be not invisible, but less, detected less. And these uniforms that were purchased were counterfeit, didn't have that heat signature appropriately, and so therefore they were just openly visible to our enemies. And so that alone, that case was $20 million that this person made from this. I mean, we're not talking small dollar amounts. We had another case out of Philadelphia, was specific to terrorist financing, where one of the individuals was selling counterfeit merchandise in support of ISIS. 100% tied to it. When you talk about like, well, what are the ties, right? Like I said, it's been testified before Congress, FBI director, Interpol. Some of the stuff is classified. We have had where they've detected counterfeit Cisco products that were being sold to the U.S. government, to hospitals, the chips, when chips were so hard to get.
But it's like, how do they're that successful that they can make the sale to the U.S. government?
Sometimes it's through subcontractors. If the government contracts with a company to supply something, and that company then has a subcontractor, and that's the whole point of like being able to not be able to buy products, specifically ones that are related to our intelligence and our DoD supply chain, to not be from a particular source. And so we try to make sure they don't enter the supply chain. But sometimes people cut corners, try to make extra money themselves. And so this is something that can happen even to the government. But thankfully, in these cases, they were detected and found. But the money is staggering. And even from a national security, organized crime perspective, there was one particular case, the Babchenko case, where this criminal organization was suspected, alleged to have been involved in all sorts of criminal activity, organized crime. But the one crime that they were able to be arrested and convicted on was counterfeit. Wow. Right. So it's like the old, Al Capone method.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes they're into more than one thing.
But we'll get
them what you can get them on.
Yeah. And that's what you do every day, which is so cool. I mean, it's what you guys do every day.
Yeah. And we Yeti has had some beautiful cases with law enforcement. Where we build it all up and then we refer it over, because it's we also are very cognizant of the fact that there are really bad things going on out there, and there's only so much funding. Yes. Homeland Security Investigations has been amazing and a great partner throughout my entire career. But there's a lot that brands do on their own to protect the consumer, and then the bigger things like hopefully the phishing thing gets some government attraction, and that should be your governors and all of the folks in local communities leaning on them so that they are educated. Yeti got to be part of, there were 4 companies that were part of it for the Government Accountability Report by the Senate Finance Committee. Okay. This was back in 2018, and it was Apple iPhone chargers, Nike, which they didn't have a problem because they've got like a team of 400 people, right? And then it was Yeti, and it was Urban Decay makeup. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Makeup? Like all the different things you say, it's like now you're thinking of baby formula, stuff you put on you or ingest.
There was one gentleman that I used to work with, and he worked for a bigger like perfume type company, and they would test it, and you don't want to know what was in the counterfeit perfume. It was just disgusting. But it doesn't get that tint of yellow from nothing. But I would say in general, people just law enforcement is there, and then we'll do our things as well. But the offerings are.
So it's a collaborative, it's community driven. We all have to be engaged in this. This is where I love where Crime Stoppers sort of steps in, because we think if the average person is educated, it's half the battle. You're going to think twice before you shop, you click, you purchase, you respond to that text or email, and that is like the greatest gift we can sort of give you this holiday season. What are you two expecting to see, though, this holiday season? What are you most worried about? Do you think it's going to be the same scams we've seen for some time? Anything new or different?
Well, there's always an uptick, right, during the holiday season, as you mentioned. So I do think an awareness campaign is obviously warranted, and the message needs to be continued on websites, especially for Homeland Security Investigations and the National IPR Center, which is the Intellectual Property Rights Center. They will have some tips on shopping smart, so people can go and educate them. And even if you go into Google and you type,
phishing, they have a reporting page. Goes straight there.
It's not phishing with an F. No. It's not fishing with an F.
No, it's not the good kind.
Yeah, it's not fishing with an F.
But yeah, you're always going to worry about, again, the Christmas lights, the toy. You don't want toys also that could be harmful. Number one, they're not going to meet the standards of an actual product that is authorized to be, a genuine product that's going to have either not just the lead content, but maybe small pieces that, if they're inappropriately marked for the age, can be choking hazards to children. Bike helmets. How many kids get bikes and bike helmets but that's another safety issue. Health and beauty aside, you already said it, never put anything on or in your body that you don't know is a genuine product, but you have to also think of these other things that can cause harm to you. And so you'll see an uptick in the electronics, of course, at Christmas time.
Yeah.
But when you're shopping in a retail store, you're not worried about counterfeits. These
So you're
concerns
just saying,
are
like when you're
online.
at Target or something?
Yeah, you're not
like
worrying about that there at
No.
all. You're worried about it if you're in a third-party seller.
Correct. Marketplace.
Yeah, or resell. I was extremely surprised at the volume of counterfeits I've had to go after on Etsy. There's platforms that really want to, and I want them to, celebrate the artist. But that's where the counterfeiters will attack, because they know they can get in there, they can reach a larger audience that's gift giving. So I would say they're looking to get you during the gift giving season. They're looking to have you come over with a coupon code, and then all of a sudden you click on something and you're on a different site. So look up as you go along. And if you feel like you were scammed or you didn't receive a product, hopefully you used a credit card. You can reach out to them. Say it was fraud, say it was phishing, say it was counterfeit, if any of those things are good faith belief, because they have protocols that, they need certain words to get the claim to start moving.
So we're sort of wrapping up our time, but this conversation is really important, obviously, for like everyone in your house. So from the elderly parents who are often victims of phishing scams and holiday scams in general, to the young kids in your home, the tweens who have now started to go on Amazon. This generation of kids has grown up where it's very normal for them to say, let me jump on Amazon and get something. And they may say, Mom, put in your credit card, or some 13-year-olds have the credit card already in the phone. They need to be aware that sometimes they might not be buying an authentic product. A lot of young girls are going to Shein and all of these companies that are not based in the U.S. to buy all of their holiday gifts for each other. And it didn't occur to me until just now, like, what are they buying?
Eek.
So
we've had a few circumstances where people call us and they're asking why they're on a list with customs. And I'm like, I don't know why you're on a list with customs. And then I'll get a seizure notice because all of our marks and many other marks are registered with customs. And not only are you purchasing potentially a counterfeit, the importation of a counterfeit is illegal too, even if you're not reselling it. So these people got put on a list because they went and bought it on a website, waiting for their product. It was coming over from China, Thailand, wherever it was. And it got stopped at customs. Customs was like, something's not right here. They stopped and seized the package to protect our border, to protect our homeland security. And poof, this person is now on a list with customs.
That's unbelievable.
And that's the trend that we're seeing too with these sellers. They're, where they used to ship in bulk, now they're shipping it to individuals. And so that does make it a lot harder for CBP for the detection, because you're talking about small parcels now, international small parcels with, onesie twosies. But again, if you have a shipper that will with the company name that gets put on a list for inspection, but it does make it more challenging for law enforcement when it's these tiny packages. And you had mentioned earlier, a great partnership with the private sector, with the brands, 100% that when they can bring a case to us that's, almost ready-made, because there are significant priorities, and the government doesn't have limitless resources.
Yes, of course.
Right? And so we do look to private sector to help, and obviously to make sure that we can meet some thresholds for prosecution of these cases. So it's really a necessary partnership. It's a great partnership, but one where, they may have more visibility and more time, because the government's going to obviously check on national security and public safety first. Always focusing on those.
Yes.
But we don't want everybody else to be left behind either, right? We still need to protect all other types of merchandise that's being counterfeited. Your movies and things that are being streamed and released ahead of time. Again, something like that can cause millions of dollars in losses. But also, people think they're downloading a movie before it's released. Well, you just downloaded malware.
Yeah.
So there's all these problems. There's so many aspects of like where do you look? Don't click on anything.
Yeah. Well, and it's
anything.
not about being afraid. We always say it's never about being paranoid or not doing things. It's about just having the information and doing it wisely. And you two are remarkable. We thank you so much. Hearing you a few weeks ago in Austin, I was like, I have to figure out a way to get them on our podcast because I think the information is important for all of us. If you want to follow Alysa, Jeni will put their information in the notes. I don't know if they can reach out to you, but look at the work that their great organizations are doing. We ultimately all want to just keep each other safe. So we thank you both for being with us. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time on the Balanced Voice podcast. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's Balanced Conversation. You can find real solutions and tangible resources in our show notes at thebalancedvoicepodcast.com. To join the conversation, follow us on Instagram at The Balanced Voice Podcast and on Twitter at @BalancedVoice_. Stay up to date on Rania's work by following her at The Rania Report, and we can't wait to see you next week for another Balanced Conversation.